All right, Syreeta never lets me start early. It's this new thing, like New Year, New Me thing, I guess. I don't know what it is.
No, it's over. The game is over.
I know, but I was really hoping. I said it's the right way. I wasn't really hoping that they would make that kick. I just would have felt more confident.
You would have felt it's over, Glenn.
I know it is.
It's over, and the season is over, and good luck.
I know that's true, Rita. I know that's true. But it's still, technically they can get the ball back. Yeah, whatever. I don't want to talk about that part. Project Game Day post-game show. Now, by the way, the one time Rita and I did start early in a playoff game, it ended up becoming a one-possession game again. The Ravens had the ball back. That was 2 years ago. Yes. So maybe we can create the same juju somehow by going on early, and we can suddenly have our conversation disrupted.
It's over. It's over.
I'm trying
and listen.
I'm trying to be positive.
You can, but I'll be the realist of the crew.
When did that start?
I'm not a pessimist. I'm a realist. It started when Lamar Jackson went out with a concussion and was out for the rest of the game. The game is over.
Of course.
And I'm at peace with it. Ironically, Glenn, I was not anxious about this game as I had been in other big situations. I was not anxious going into this game, and I don't know if that was a good or a bad thing, but when Sam Cook muffed that punt, I was like, okay, well, this is the night that we're going to have, and I have to accept what comes with that. And if that comes with a loss, then I have to accept that. And I accepted it a long time ago.
Let me make a blanket statement, because I know you're going to, and by the way, we're going to let Ken check in a bit.
Yes.
You and I are going to go for a little while, and then we'll have Ken check in too. I'm going to make a blanket statement that people aren't going to like, and it's not going to absolve all agency when I say this, but I do think this is my first big takeaway, and nobody likes it when I say these things because they want to scream about something. Sometimes we have to acknowledge that football is football, and sometimes within playing football, really bizarre things occur. Sometimes within playing football, certain things cannot be fully predicted. I could not have predicted that the Ravens would be trailing 10-3, marching down the field, and the entire game would turn on 2 consecutive plays. Not really consecutive. I guess there was a snap in between there. There was a first down play when the Ravens got the ball back. The entire game would turn that drastically, that quickly. Of course, they're moving the ball down the field.
I don't care, Glenn. They're not winning the fucking football game.
Oh,
and yes, I'm dropping F-bombs. Well, I've been drinking because the Ravens made me drink from the time that Justin Tucker missed the first field goal. So I've been drinking tequila since that first missed kick. So if I use a lot of F-bombs tonight, it's because of that.
Blame the tequila.
No, I'm blaming myself.
Oh, okay.
But the tequila is helping me curse.
Blame you and the tequila.
The game is fucking over. Okay? And I don't give a shit what Tyler Huntley is doing right now. Okay? Lamar's not in there, and Lamar's the bigger star.
2 weeks ago, I wanted to start the postgame show, and Rita's like, I want to watch Tyler Huntley. I want to watch this young man.
Well, that was different, right? That was different. That was different. They were winning, and they were kicking ass.
He might be bailed out. He might have just fumbled the ball. I don't know.
Well, they saying that they got it.
God. Oh, all right. Look.
Well, they saying it down. He's saying it's down.
Whatever. No, this is... It's frustrating because we always want to scream about something in particular. I don't know what happens. I don't know what happens in this football game. And it doesn't take anything away from any complaint that anybody's going to have. But I don't know what happens if Lamar Jackson sees that defender and doesn't make that throw at the end of the third quarter. I don't know what happens if instead he notices that defender has slipped off Willie Snead and Willie Snead is open now in the end zone and he hits Willie Snead in the end zone on that play. I can't tell you the Ravens are winning the game. I can't tell you that, Lamar Jackson doesn't get hurt. I can't tell you any of those things.
Yeah.
But we don't want to acknowledge that football can turn that quickly.
It can.
It can happen.
It literally can happen that quickly. And I mean, we look at it like this. The game probably should have been 9-13 maybe because both Justin Tucker missed 2,
right?
And their kicker missed 1.
And just missed another one, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Well, I was talking about prior to the pick.
Right,
I was talking about prior to the pick
100%.
So it's still a close game, but Glenn,
they also dropped the ball in the end zone too, right?
And so look, ironically, we've heard so much about Lamar not having any red zone interceptions, red zone turnovers, and it came at the worst possible time.
This is why I'm going to be hard pressed to flip out the way that everybody else is, Rita. This game changed because of something. Remember early in the year, like when Gus Edwards had a fumble, and I was like, I can't overreact to that. Gus Edwards doesn't have a fumbling. He's not a fumbler.
The timing of it is wrong. I wish it would have been in the first quarter, so then that way we could have been able to move on from it, but it didn't. But you're right. He's
trying to. He heard you. Rita.
I don't care.
He heard you.
These motherfuckers ain't winning this football game. I don't care.
He's doing this. He's pointing at you as he's doing it.
Hey, dog, he can point at me all day. And look, I hope they do score, but it ain't gonna be enough. That's all I know. And as good as the Ravens,
the Bills can't run the ball.
As good as the Ravens, well,
they actually did a little bit in the second half.
But I was getting ready to say, but Glenn, although I knew prior coming into the game that they weren't that great at running the ball. Singletary is not a great running back. They just decided not to. It wasn't even like they tried in the first half. They just flat out said, we're just gonna run some empty sets. And we just gonna throw the football to Stephon Diggs and maybe John Brown a couple times and see what that works. And see, and obviously it worked more than it. Well, it didn't work more than it did.
It didn't
because
really,
the defense was good, but obviously they started learning how to put Stephon in some certain spots.
Yep.
They kind of abandoned the deep ball. They realized that it really wasn't there, so they kind of did the dink and dunk type of thing and chunked it away, and that's what worked for them. But they just really was like, we ain't gonna run the football because we know we ain't good at running the football, and we just saw what they did to Derrick Henry last week.
And to be fair, they were that way when they had Zach Moss.
Well, that's true.
Like, that didn't
true.
change.
Prior to Zach Moss going out,
like that's been who they've been. They've been this good despite the fact that they just haven't run the football. Right now, you would think that at some point they needed to run the football. And by the way, a little bit in the second half, they said we need to mix the run, even if we're not confident in what it is that we're going to do. We need to mix some run back in. And for that one drive, which is all they needed, as it turns out.
A couple times he got some first downs.
They ran the ball just enough.
You do kind of need that, right? You need a mix up because you obviously want to start getting the time off the clock and you want to start running the time off. And so you needed to do that. And look, listen, Buffalo defensively, their game plan has been phenomenal. The Ravens offensive line clearly wasn't prepared for what they were going to do today. And that probably
would have been a touchdown.
And that is probably the difference of this football game. Is the fact that the Bills defense, as middle of the pack as they are, because they are a middle of the pack defense, decided that they were going to be super aggressive. They were going to blitz. They were going to run blitz. They were going to
the part that will be left out in that will be they did that being aided by an extra defender, which both teams had tonight, which was the wind. They made some decisions. Nobody wants to talk about this.
I agree with that.
But they made some decisions. By the way, the Ravens made some decisions being aided by the wind as well. Knowing how good Josh Allen is against the blitz, it was pretty clear that Wink Martindale said, we're not going to blitz quite as much as we typically do. Did he? No, I was going to say.
But somebody else was wide open, and I don't know who that was.
Oh, yeah, wide open on the other side of the
Get out of my face. I told you they wasn't going to win.
It's over. We can just deal with this now. Project Game Day postgame show from the Chesapeake Employers Insurance Studio. Glenn, Rita, Casey will be with us in a minute. They made some...
I'm sorry. I got to get out of my face.
It's what it is, Rita.
My face is what it is. I know. I had to think about it. And I was
People are already enjoying your performance, by the way. They're already in.
Because I'm using curse words? Yeah. Listen, guys. Listen, I was fine until the Justin Tucker missed kick. And I was like, this is going to be a long night for us. It just wasn't going to be and then when Sam Cook muffed the punt, I knew it wasn't going to be the night for us. I wasn't giving up.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I didn't feel any of that,
Well,
Rita.
I felt it.
Yeah, I didn't feel any of that.
Because you know why? Sam Cook never muffs punts.
No doubt.
Never. So Justin Tucker, I'm not going to hold that against him. The wind clearly in Buffalo is swirling.
100%.
And it's affected both kickers. So that really didn't affect me. But when Sam Cook muffed that punt, I was like, something's wrong here. And that's a problem.
But this is why it's difficult for me to freak out tonight, Rita.
I'm not freaked out at all.
I know you are. I'm saying the story of the game, really, the real story of the game is Justin Tucker misses 2 kicks. Never happens. Lamar Jackson throws an interception in the red zone.
Never happens.
Never happens.
Right.
So I can flip out. I can say, well, it's but the ultimate story of the game is the game. We're talking about 20 points worth of difference in 2 field goals and a 14-point swing on 1 play.
Yep.
20 points worth of difference because of 3 things that occurred that never happen with this football team. So we can sit here and we can do all of that. And I know we will. I'll get to your comments in a minute. I know we'll do all of the, it's the Ravens. They were up last week. They weren't emotionally ready for this. So the play calling.
I don't agree with any of that.
You can run through your Greg Roman sucks. You can run through.
Well, that's true.
We'll get to that. We'll deal with that then.
I can't wait for KZ to come on because me and KZ going to have a field day, baby.
Y'all can do all of that.
Greg Roman.
You can do all that you want. But 20 points, 20-point difference on those three things that occur.
Look, I hear you, but still there's no touchdowns we're having a conversation about. And shout out to Buffalo's defense, but Greg Roman was not prepared, clearly. And that's a big problem. And the centers weren't prepared.
No, I mean,
offensive line in general.
I'll throw that in as far as, like, you want a tangible problem that needs to be fixed?
Well,
it's pretty clear.
What they better do is go into the draft and find you a center because neither one of those guys know how to snap the ball.
That is at this point unbelievably obvious. That is obvious that there is no option.
If I get one more text, Glenn, about asking me about my centers,
leave
me the hell alone. I don't know what the hell is wrong with those guys.
I like Patrick McCary was put into was asked to do a lot of things over the last 2 years. Matt Skura, decent guy. Like, these are good guys.
Yeah,
they cannot,
personally.
At no point you cannot go into a season next year with the intent on trying to win a Super Bowl and believe that those are your answers. It's just not acceptable.
That's it.
And we thought that was going to be a priority for them last offseason. They decided they thought they could get by with what they had internally. It ends up really biting them. It ends up being a major story.
The Steelers game is the first time that you realized that you had a problem and it needed to be fixed.
Yep.
And so obviously you can't really do anything mid-season, right? Everybody's on a roster already. If a guy is on the street, that means he's probably not good to begin with.
Correct.
So you can't really do anything. So they obviously had to make some changes within the guys that they already had on the roster. But if Eric DeCosta doesn't do something about that center position, that's a real problem.
No, it's a really obvious must be addressed.
And as much as I would love some skilled players, I would love to have an Allen Robinson or whoever else is available, Julio Jones, if they're willing to trade for that guy.
Yep.
You can't do anything without the center. The right tackle position with Fluker doesn't bother me. You want to know why? Because Brown will go back there and Stanley will go back to left tackle. Fluker means nothing to me. He can be an extra blocker if you decide to keep him.
Correct.
But the right tackle position is not a position that's solidified. Somebody else already belongs there, but he's out of place because another guy is injured.
Yep.
But the center position is absolutely something you need to address, whether it's via free agency. I would prefer it to be via draft. You need to find a way to make that happen.
That's a weird thing too, Rita, right? Because if you don't address it via free agency, then you pigeonhole yourself into a place where you have to use a certain pick on a center, right?
But I'm fine with that because the Ravens have done a good job of getting centers in between rounds 3 and 5 or offensive linemen between 3 and 5. I don't have a problem. I don't have a big problem with that.
I mean, Jason Brown is the one, right? Like, that would be the one that you would use to say, here's a guy that they found that like wasn't necessarily a forced pick. I always hate going in the draft with a position that's such an obvious, we must take one of these guys. So
you want them to do like how they found Matt Burke in free agency?
And by the way,
if
you also happen to find a guy who can be your set, if the draft plays out that way and you get your guy in the second round, this could be a guy that's around for 1 year. I just don't ever want to go into the draft. This is the danger of like the tight end thing a couple of years ago, where you find yourself saying, we don't have tight ends. We don't have tight ends on our roster. We have to. Well, I mean, but at that point, remember, like when they drafted Hayden Hurst, they were in a place where they were going to have to select tight end early. They put themselves against the wall. And this is not a knock on Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst is a fine football player. And like, it's frustrating because you remember that pick could have been Derwin James. I know Derwin James has been hurt the last couple of years, so maybe it's kind of a wash at this point. I don't know. But the point being, I don't ever want to be up against the wall at a certain position going into the draft. I would rather
and that's a fair
if
assessment.
I can find my guy, great. Then the guy that I just signed could be here for 1 year at most and can be replaced, if if he's not as good as I thought he was. If he's as good as Matt Burke, then this guy can sit and wait his time. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
That's the way that I like to approach it.
That's fair. I don't know what the center list looks like in terms of free agency. Obviously,
that wasn't something I was spending a lot of time on this week.
It's not a sexy position where people have those types of conversations. But ironically, though, Glenn, I just did not think that tonight we would have a conversation about how bad those snaps were. And now that and the offensive play calling have been the focal point of what has happened with tonight's football game.
All right, as I try to pull in KZ here, let's go through some comments from Tom Marr. When people think kicking is easy, they should be shown this game. Look, kicking's never easy. Kicking in the wind is ungodly difficult, and I don't think we spent enough time during the course of the week talking about what a factor wind was going to be. We spent so much time thinking about snow and how that could change the game and guys playing in the snow for the first time and not wanting snow. We never really talked about how wind could truly be a factor in this game, which it turned out to be. From Joey, worst case scenario in the second half. I mean, worst case scenario from the moment, from the final minute of the third quarter. Again, it sucked to give up a drive on the first, or a touchdown on the first drive of the third quarter. But if the Ravens score a touchdown right back, I don't know what this game looks like. I don't know. Paul, this team did not want to play today. Poorly coached, not motivated. That's what it seemed like to me.
Stop.
And that's the stuff I can't. I can't.
Who was that?
That's from Paul.
Paul, stop, Paul.
Paul G, not Paul M.
I know, because Paul M is one of our guys.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it had nothing to do with that. Like, you can't say that they weren't ready to try to move on the next step. You think people don't hear the conversations about Lamar winning football games? You don't think that was a topic of conversation? Like you said, nobody was prepared for the wind that came into this football game. Nobody was prepared for how aggressive the Buffalo defense was going to be in this football game. And let's be quite honest here. I see 17 points here from a very good Buffalo offense. The defense did their job today. So let's
for the most part, they did. Look, I think we can still be critical of the lack of pass rush. I think we can still do that.
Fair,
but yes.
But what I'm addressing is them saying that they didn't show up.
Right.
That is not true.
I agree, and that's the part I agree with. I agree with that.
And don't address anybody else with that shit either, Glenn, because I don't want to hear anybody else talk about they weren't ready or they didn't show up. They showed the hell up.
Hey Ken,
okay?
Hey Ken, do you think the Ravens were ready tonight?
Yeah, they were ready tonight. I mean, look, you did one of these. What's your biggest concern on Twitter?
Yeah.
About the game, and I was sort of tongue in cheek, but my biggest concern was the Buffalo Bills are a good football team.
They are.
I mean, people forget. I know their defense wasn't as great as it was last year, but it was pretty much intact from what they had last year, and they were great last year.
They did a pretty good job against the Ravens' run a year ago. Now,
They did. And look, and there were so many things that went wrong in this game that usually don't go wrong for the Ravens.
Thank you, KZ.
That's the thing I can't. It makes it really hard for me to flip out tonight, Ken.
But here's the part that I get upset with, and I'm sitting there, I'm watching the game, and the Bills didn't change what they did the entire game on the defensive side.
They didn't.
They were playing what's essentially called a four quarters defense, which means you're sending an extra guy up top and you're playing a zone behind it. And why the Ravens can't make in-game adjustments before halftime is beyond me.
All right, so I'm gonna say two things here.
Yes.
I think some of that is correct. I think you're not giving them credit for how they staggered where that extra man was coming from in the second quarter in particular. In the second quarter, the Bills did a tremendous job of staggering that.
No matter where the person is coming from, if you change your offense, like they did really, really well to come out the second half, they should have been doing that after the first quarter, because it doesn't matter where they're coming from if you're running short patterns and sitting in the zones. And what they were doing is they weren't using the middle of the field in the first.
Thank you, KZ. That is a valid point.
They were sending guys on outs.
No, he's right.
And crossing patterns. Like the one that was glaring that everybody will remember is the third down where Andrews came across the middle and the linebacker went with him and it went off his hands like every ball does in the playoffs.
It's like 3rd and 3, yeah.
But if he comes across and just sits in the middle of the zone where he's supposed to, if that's the call, that's an easy throw and catch for a first down. And they did that coming out of the second half. It's like they made that adjustment, but why it takes that long to make that adjustment is it continues to be a problem for me. I'm glad they made the halftime adjustment. It's unfortunate. I'm sure you talked about it's unfortunate with the interception and the pick six. Whatever. It'll just feed the fire for those that hate Lamar and whatever. But why they cannot make those adjustments in game after they see how a team is playing you, I just don't get it, because we can sit at home and we've talked about route trees and route combinations all year long, and people are complaining about that you have to get a true number one receiver. Okay, all that's probably true, but if you just take what the defense is giving you and change your route combinations to that while it's happening, I don't think you have these problems.
I'm going to say this, there's an element of truth to what you're saying. I think that it continues to be this notion that if we do something, there's no way that the other team is going to adjust to that. And that part, again, this notion, can you do it? Absolutely. You can absolutely do some different things. I absolutely break with the idea of if you just do this, this is just going to work. I break with that.
But you have to try, Glenn. That's the difference. That's the point here, is that what did they do real differently from the first half? What exactly did they do to change? Did they change the protections to the point that you felt like that they did good?
No, I thought the offensive line was poor the entire game.
Right,
I don't think that was
did you get the ball out quick because you knew they were bringing an extra guy? Did you roll out a little bit to try to give you some opportunity?
And again, some of that speaks to me to the credit that we don't want to give the Bills. The Bills did a good job of disguising where the extra guy was coming from. They did a tremendous job.
My point is that the extra guy was coming. That's the point. So what do you do with that, knowing that in the second quarter that was what they were going to do? Get the ball out of that guy's hands. On the bare minimum, I do think that there should be more plays that are quick hitters, of course. But I think that's an eternal thing that we would. I don't think that's unique to tonight. I don't think that's unique to this team. But that's the problem.
I don't think it's unique to this team. I think there are.
No,
it
is unique to this team, Glenn.
I don't think it's unique.
Stop.
No. Stop, Rita. There's too many bad football teams for me to buy.
Okay, but this is not a bad football team, and that guy once again has not found a way to adjust. That's the problem. This is a team that went 14-2 last year, 11-5 this year, and you still do not know how to adjust when other teams are showing you what they're doing. That is a problem.
I think that's something that's easy
Defend it, Glenn. Come on, baby.
I think what you were doing is we're saying it's easy to say. I think you'd be alarmed by the number of teams that it's the absolute same thing.
We're not talking about other teams. We're talking about this football team.
I completely understand what you're saying, Rita. I completely get it. I just don't think it's uncommon. I think the Chiefs have the same problem. I think they absolutely have the same problem. I think if you watch their football games,
they have a completely different personnel. So I
think that bails them out a lot of times.
Okay, and that's fair.
That bails them out a lot.
And that is fair.
I think it is a football thing that regularly adjustments aren't made until halftime because we forget how complex it is to call plays in the National Football League.
Yes, but what adjustments was made to you at the third quarter that you thought
they definitely the one drive they had
effective. What did
the one drive when the Ravens had the ball in the third quarter, which is the only time that Lamar Jackson had the ball in the second half, they absolutely did more short in the middle types of passing. They did make an adjustment at the half. There's no question that they made an adjustment to what they did to play calling. Our complaint is typically more about in-game adjustments. And it's not even me here telling you that you're wrong. It's me saying that throughout football, that's not really a thing. In football, these in-game, non-halftime adjustment, this concept is extraordinarily rare. We all scream about it. We all want it to occur. And I'm not saying that it should be impossible for it to. It's something that we want that just isn't really real. It is extraordinarily rare that a team completely changes what it is that they're doing in the midst of a half and does something entirely different. Now, the answer might be because we have a bunch of people that think they know what they're doing and they understand football and they're all the exact same type of person that's hell-bent on this is how we do things. It might be that it's nothing more than laziness and shameful that that's the case. Or it might be more difficult than we want to believe that it is in order to do that.
So why is it very, very easy for I see somebody like Wink Martindale that can make in-game adjustments on defense when this is an offensive football league? Yet we're sitting here saying that offensive coaches, when you have literally plays in your favor, you have penalties in your favor.
The rules apply to it.
The rules apply to you, and yet you can't find a way to adjust. I have a problem with that, Glenn. I got a real big. And look, I understand that the personnel for this team is not as good as.
Well, there's definitely that, but I don't think
that's an issue, right? You only got one tight end. The 85 dude just out there to be blocking. He ain't doing nothing I don't even know what he does outside of blocking.
But teams with good personnel don't do this well. Teams with great personnel don't do this well.
Go ahead, Casey.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You say they don't do it, but I'm sorry, and I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night, so if I make
they don't pay money. Sorry. We don't give them sponsorships. They don't. That's not the way that works.
But what are we all looking at when we come to the sidelines and those little iPads that we all have on whatever they have.
Microsoft. It's the Microsoft.
Surface, whatever it is. Well, again, these people don't pay us money. We don't care about them.
It's a Surface.
You say there's nobody does these in-game adjustments, but then what's everybody looking at all the time? I'm sorry.
They're trying to learn from the plays that occurred. They're trying to see things, Ken. It's not like
first series you saw what they were doing. There was no adjustment. There was no try to even throw the ball in the middle field. Nobody even ran in the middle of the field. Everybody, a couple of times when Lamar got sacked.
I'm gonna add. All right, I'm just gonna do this because we got to move on from this and cover other things. Ken, how many offensive coordinators have there been in Ravens history?
Probably too many to name.
I mean, it's double digits. How many of them do you think were good at making in-game adjustments?
0.
Okay. Do you think that's because the Ravens have found all of the offensive coordinators that are really terrible at in-game adjustments, or do you think that maybe the concept of in-game adjustments just isn't something that is really legitimate in the NFL?
You want me to answer that question?
I know what you're going to say.
You know why I think it is.
Well, you don't think this predates John Harbaugh, Ken? Come on, man.
Well, yes,
name the guy that was good before John Harbaugh got here. Stop this.
I know, but guess what? That's the problem, though, Glenn. Like you can't keep doing this. If they're showing you something, you're telling me that you're not going to make any changes. I got a real problem.
And by the way, we would have to really get into film for me to see if there were no changes whatsoever made, right?
Right. And I'm just saying that tongue in cheek. Obviously, we don't know that at the moment. All we know is that they were running a certain type of defense, and they were still not prepared for that certain type of defense.
I understand everything you guys are saying, and I'm not even here to tell you that hypothetically and the thing that you're talking about is wrong.
You're trying to make us feel better by saying that other guys don't do it, and I'm saying that they get paid a lot of money, and they need to
do it. Or, and I know this, we don't want to do this, or score a touchdown and tie the game up, and then we don't have this conversation.
Yes, and yes.
By the way,
and guess what? We'll put that on Lamar. That's the one big mistake that he made this whole entire game. Fine.
It's not. I'm not putting the game on Lamar.
I'm not. I said I put that play. I put that play on Lamar. This is the way this goes, right? But offensively, it was a collective effort. None of those guys, the guys up front, didn't want to block. They found a way to say, we're going to run blitz. We're going to bring an extra guy to help us tackle these guys. And at times, so the outside was where they were strong. The inside was where they were vulnerable. And at the times that they were supposed to run the football in the inside, they decided not to do that. And then when they decided to do that, they had guys on the line of scrimmage. I don't know what you want me to tell them to do, Glenn. Because I'm tired. Come on, Casey, give me some.
Game Day post-game show is.
I know you saw it too.
Let me get the reads in, Rita.
I'm tired.
Some people, you only doing commercials for the Holiday Inn and for Microsoft. I got to do them for the people that are paying us money. Project Game Day post-game show is brought to you by the U.S. Army and Wise Markets. Glenn, Rita, KZ has joined us over Skype. I got to get through some of these comments.
Do we? Because I know they're going to say something stupid.
Well, no, some of them are going to agree with you. That's the way it goes. Paul. This is the other Paul. This is Paul M. Looking ahead to next season, this is going to speak to what you guys are talking about. I feel like Lamar has outgrown a Greg Roman offense, just like Joe outgrew Cam's offense. Ravens and Lamar need a more sophisticated passing scheme to evolve, get to the next level of offensive proficiency, along with more upgrading at the wide receiver position, of course.
I agree with that.
I'm struggling with, here's what the only reason I'll tell you I'm struggling with that. You have to completely adapt your identity at some point. Now, at some point, you just might have to do that, right? Like, it might be time to completely adapt your identity, but this speaks to the conversation that we have with Lamar a lot, is that I want Lamar running to be a significant part of what Lamar Jackson does because, as we saw, for example, on 3rd and 13, he's one of one in that department. I don't know. I'm not telling you Lamar can't be a really good, predominantly passing quarterback. I don't know if Lamar Jackson is a top 3, top 5 NFL quarterback if he throws the ball 40 times a game. I know he's one of one if he runs a lot. So if you bring in a different offense with someone else running the offense, and that person's mind is, I don't want my quarterback running that much, I don't like that. I don't want that here. That doesn't make sense to me for the personnel that you have. So I get it. I get everything that everybody's saying. We want to evolve the offense. We want there to be a next level to the offense. We want all of those things. But I do think that whatever this offense is has to be centered around Lamar's gifts with running the football. Period. And it happened to tie in well with what Greg Roman did and wanting to run the ball a ton.
You know what he doesn't? You know what? You know what I'm about to say?
I understand.
Do you know what I'm about to say?
Oh, is he going to say he doesn't make in-game adjustments? Is that what you're going to say?
That's not what I was getting ready to say. You know what I hate the most, and they kept doing it, right?
What?
You know, what do I complain about every week?
Oh, the design run out to the outside. Yeah, I don't like that either.
Why do they
I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
Doing it when defenses are prepared for the outside run? I'm fed up.
We agree with that. We agree on that one. We agree wholeheartedly.
And so maybe Paul has a point here. Maybe he has a point because they keep doing it, knowing defenses know that they're going to try to run outside, and they have not been successful. And anytime it's successful, Glenn and KZ, it's been because Lamar has made it successful. He's made a guy miss. He's made 2 guys miss. It ain't because somebody's blocking for him to help him get the first yardage.
The outside zone runs
I'm fed up with it.
They have not worked, period.
Enough.
They have not worked.
Leave it alone.
No question. All season, the Ravens seem to have gotten crappy play out of the center position regarding shotgun snaps, whether it was Skura or McCary. Not sure if Cologne Castillo is the answer, but don't think Skura. I mean, we talked about this already. You can't, at this point, you cannot go into next season with the answer being, we'll figure it out internally. That cannot be the answer at center. They're going to have to address center some way or another. And that's not a knock. I don't know what Tristan Cologne Castillo is as a center long-term in the NFL. Maybe he's a guy who can play, but you can't pin your Super Bowl hopes on that guy becoming that guy. This must be addressed in a way that you are confident about it going into next season one way or the other.
Can I ask a question of the panel?
Yeah. No. You're not allowed to do that.
Okay. So, I'm going to anyway. I do this draft thing every once in a while, and I seem to believe that we drafted the top center in college football a couple of years back. I don't know. You have him. I think you have him on the show every once in a while.
Oh yeah, guy. Yeah, I mean,
can he
talking about
Bozeman? Because he was by far one of the top 5 center prospects to come out over the last 5-6 years. And they've never, ever, ever looked at him as a center. They moved him to guard right away.
Okay,
he's always been there. I don't understand it.
So I'm not telling you it can't be the answer, but what I would say is that all of the film people would tell you that without a doubt Bradley Bozeman was the best pulling guard in the NFL this year. So if you're adapting your offense and saying it's going to require less pulling, then yeah, it probably would make more sense to consider that. But if your offense is going to continue with this predominantly pulling guard, I don't think you would want to weaken where you have the best pulling guard in the NFL right now. So, I understand it.
They keep on drafting guards though. So
yes. Could both Ben Powers? By the way, could Patrick McCary be a fine guard? Right? Like, could Ben Powers, Patrick McCary,
Phillips guard next year?
Ben Bredesen, that group of guys, could they take care of the guard?
You have all these guards. You got Stanley coming back.
But no
guard again.
But to his point, if you move Bozeman to center,
that's his point.
Do you have enough of these guys that we think could be quality guards
potentially
that you could solve the problem that way? Maybe. I mean, like, that's all I can tell you.
And you still need a center just in case.
Yeah, I'm still struggling with this, right?
After today, are you really?
Well,
after today,
I'm struggling with his question specifically, the Bozeman question.
But I do like the Cologne kid just for argument.
I mean, I think a lot of people did. And by the way, he played fine in the Pittsburgh game, but that's one game, right? Like
But hey, I look at it like this. So you have 3 weeks before you get the film, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if you played him in the Pittsburgh game and then you're trying to find a way to implement him in some other games,
it might not have been right.
That's all I'm saying. But
I
agree, Casey. I agree with you. I believe when he got drafted coming out, he wasn't apparently doing that well in camp, and that's kind of how he got to not being a center. But now that he has some experience, are we just not going to give him a look because you think that the other two guys are better, or is now an opportunity to say, hey, maybe we do need to give Bozeman a look and see if those other guys can be guards?
I think this
this
becomes a foundational question about how you view guard versus center.
Well, that's true.
Right? Like, it really.
But we know Bozeman was a center in
I understand
Alabama.
that, but if you feel like you're weakening your team, if you think guard is a more important position than center within your offense, then you would feel like you're weakening your team by moving your really good guard to center. Now, specifically pulling. Let me make that very clear. Like,
I understand,
that's specifically what he's been very good at.
I know.
You know what would make the team better? If the guy throwing Lamar the ball first got it to him.
I mean, that definitely would have made them better a few times this season.
Thank you,
There's
Casey.
No question
Because that was going to be my next question. I was going to say, so after we've seen the season that we've seen, and
but
two guys cannot snap
could you
the
have
football.
both? Could you both go find a center this offseason and have the best pulling guard in
I hear
football?
you, right? Like, so maybe that's possible. But what Casey and I are saying is that the two dudes that they had ain't too good.
Tonight made a hell of an argument for the center being more important.
But
made a hell of an argument for that.
But it's been made an argument. Are we
this
saying
season,
tonight?
Yes,
this season has made an argument. And so when do you say maybe we should give Bozeman an opportunity because it's hurt us in some critical football games? Or do you just say, like you said, do you just find a guy and say Bozeman is really too valuable at guard for us
my
to
answer
move
to this
him?
question is yes. You do one or the other. That's my answer.
Okay.
Either you find a good center or then go that route and find a good guy. Like, do something, but it ain't this. I know that much. All right, Tom. Tyler Huntley earned himself a paycheck for the next 3 years. I mean, I don't know if the Ravens bring back Tyler Huntley as their primary backup.
Why not? He ain't throwing no pick six like RG3 out there.
Oh, man.
Hey.
But he missed a wide open receiver in the end zone.
And I agree with it. Go get a real backup quarterback. Fine. It's time for a real backup quarterback. Get somebody that can. If you think that you have a window of next year, maybe the year after, that you can be a Super Bowl contending team still, go get a real quarterback in case something happens.
I agree.
I mean, all these guys that they run. I mean, look, we all. I got why they had RG3 here when they drafted Lamar, because he could show him. You know, he used to be what Lamar was. The McSorley thing, I don't get. I never got. The Huntley thing, I mean, I think I get it. I mean, he could be a Lamar clone.
Yes.
With some seasoning, but go get a real quarterback.
I agree with that.
I mean, go get a Fitzpatrick type that.
Oh God, please no.
No, but I get what he's saying is, if you have a 2-game situation where you don't have your quarterback and you need to win those 2 games, you need to have more confidence in the guy that's going to play in those 2 games. Now, if you lose your quarterback for more than 2 games, the season's over. Just understand that the season's over.
I understand that, but we're not.
Right.
But that's the situation, and I agree with you. And in that case, then you bring your third quarterback that's on your practice squad and let him play the rest.
Go get him some experience.
Right.
But like in that scenario
you need a real backup quarterback
where you need to win 2 games. I get what he's saying, and whoever it is, I don't know who that, because there's very few of them. We have to be fair about that, right?
It is either, but
two NFL teams didn't have a quarterback on their roster this year.
Someone like that who has experience that can throw the football.
Yeah, okay. I mean, nobody wanted Blake Bortles.
Blake Bortles. That type of play.
Yeah. All right. From Paul, J.K. needs to spend all offseason working on catching the ball out of the backfield. We talked about that throughout the course of the season. Everybody kept looking at this guy's skill set and saying, why aren't you throwing the ball more to him? And I kept trying to say, the numbers at Ohio State say they don't think he was a pass catcher.
You did say that.
They didn't think he was a pass catcher.
And I feel like I saw the 2 games in which he caught passes, and I thought that he could catch the ball.
He averaged a little less than 2 catches per game, which in a college offense for a back like that is a staggeringly small number.
Yeah.
Because they would do that type of stuff more often.
Yeah.
College offenses typically aren't chuck the ball, unless you're playing in the Pac or the Big 12. Like that's typically something you would see more of. The numbers there said they didn't think he was that guy. Now, is it because he was always dropping balls in practice? It was because he dropped the ball in a key game and they just sort of said, we don't have faith. I don't know what the story is. They just clearly, and I remember bringing up, I brought Urban Meyer on the show after they drafted J.K. Dobbins, and I brought it up. I said, I look at his skill set, and he seems like that guy. And, Urban Meyer, because he's a salesman, did his sales job. Oh, he can definitely be that type of guy. That just wasn't the way he was used in our offense. It's pretty apparent at this point that there is something about J.K. Dobbins that makes people say he's not a pass catcher. And that's
we found that out on 3rd down.
And that's the difference right now, because otherwise his skill set says he should be a high level back in this league. He should be a top
Gus
quality.
Edwards should not be catching balls over you, J.K. Dobbins. I'm sorry.
If you're going to be an elusive running back in the NFL, you need to be able to catch the football consistently.
I agree.
Consistently.
I mean, literally, he had the ball in his hands and he just dropped.
And that was the one early. He did it again at the end of the game. Did it again. Now, he mixed in the downfield on the next time Lamar was scrambling, and he got himself loose downfield.
He did catch the ball, yeah.
From Jeff, the bottom line is they played poorly on offense tonight. The D showed up. Hopefully next year we can play more mistake-free football when it means the most.
Well, what do we call mistake-free? And like the drop passes? Because there's only 1 turnover in that football game. So I guess I'm curious. Like, are we talking about not the execution?
The penalties, certainly. Certainly the penalties. Now, again, like the worst penalty stretch ended up turning into a first down anyway because they converted.
So that's the part.
Right.
To me, that negates that because they ended up getting a first down as a result, right? But so are we saying like they just weren't consistent enough when moving the football? And then do you have to start crediting Buffalo for what they did as opposed to the Ravens not being prepared for that?
There's a lot of that, Reed. I agree. I don't think it's that simple. But look. Is it fair to judge Lamar Jackson by you made 1 mistake, right?
So I'm not doing that. It just unfortunately came at a real
what you're saying is
unfortunate
that's
time.
the really tricky part about this. It's possible. It is possible. The difference in being a Super Bowl winning team is you can't make 1 mistake. I can't be overly critical of Lamar Jackson. Again, he'd never thrown an interception in the red zone before. I didn't think tonight the totality of it was his fault. But ultimately, if you've got to beat really good football teams in 3 or 4 consecutive games, the answer might be you can't make that mistake. He got away with it a week ago, right? Yeah. Like, he made an unthinkable mistake a week ago and was able to get away with it because it came early enough in the game that they had plenty of time. And they didn't get any
points off of it.
Correct, right? Like, they could survive it a week ago. This week, he made 1 really unthinkable mistake, and it ultimately was what doomed them.
Yep.
And this is not about whether or not Lamar is this is the problem. We don't want to have this conversation because there'll be plenty of people, and I know you'll find them this week, that will use this to say Lamar is no good.
I'm ignoring everything.
God bless you. I've been waiting for that moment.
I'm ignoring
that's how I operate.
I'm not having that conversation because clearly you didn't watch this football game if you felt like Lamar is the reason why the Ravens didn't advance.
But I do think we have to be fair about this could be the margin, specifically when it comes to the playoffs and winning a Super Bowl. Remember, and I'm not trying to say that everybody did, this is the reason why it was so historic. Half of what we talked about when Joe Flacco won the Super Bowl was he threw 11 touchdowns and no interceptions.
And that's fair.
And
we can be critical of that interception all day.
Right.
We can, and I'm fine with that. But that is not why they lost that football game.
It's not alone.
They literally only scored 3 points, which they ended the game with.
I hear what you're saying.
Collective effort.
It might require that. To win a championship, it might require you being completely mistake-free.
I just think that yes, I agree with you. But let's be honest, KZ and Glenn, they can't do it with the personnel that they currently have.
That's another We're going to have plenty of those conversations.
Those guys, look, Hollywood, because I'll call him Hollywood again because he deserves to be called.
Made a couple nice plays today.
He deserves to be called his original name. And Andrew Andrews are guys that you keep. I love Snead, but he really wasn't completely involved. But everybody else has to find a way to figure out how they can be impactful players for this football game. And I don't know if that's a offensive coordinator perspective. I don't know if that's a personal perspective from these guys.
I don't think there's another offensive coordinator that comes back with this group of personnel, and you say, well, it's just the coordinator. You got to go solve it now. No, you have to upgrade the personnel.
Absolutely.
Still. 100%. That still has to occur.
You do have to upgrade the personnel. You also have to, at some point, be willing to use the personnel that you have. I mean, you drafted 2 wide receivers in this past draft, and you've shown no confidence in either one of them to have meaningful snaps and to be. I mean, I liked what I saw out of Duvernay and Prochet this year. The problem is I saw them so infrequently, and there's no pass patterns that you'll give them the run. Prochet actually ran the greatest pass pattern any wide receiver ran this year in the one catch that he had, I believe. You got to be willing to use these guys. I get that Willie Snead is a possession guy. That's fine. Why either one of these guys is losing snaps to Des Bryant is beyond me. You see all these wide receivers, not only first-round guys, but you see
it's
wide
not like
receivers
Des
all
Bryant
over
got a lot of snaps, though.
Being useful and figuring out how to use those guys. 5th-round guys, 6th-round guys. It just.
I'm going to throw that into the hypothetically I agree pile, but not fully I agree pile.
They ain't even using Des Bryant.
Yeah, they really barely use Des Bryant.
I understand. I mean, they didn't use Boykin. I mean, Boykin could be. Everybody complained about the second tight end. If you move Boykin inside and use him as an H-back or a slot guy, he serves. He's big enough for that guy, but they don't do that. And then. Playoff. I really don't like playoff Mark Andrews.
He does not show up. Glenn, it is what it is. We got to come to the reality
but we go back to the same problem, right? Like, Mark Andrews is one of your solutions. Like, I definitely think he needs to be better in the postseason. Don't get me wrong. He needs to be more reliable. But, like, you can't change it. Mark, you're not going into next season and saying we got to upgrade it tight. Like, Mark Andrews.
Well, you do need to add another tight end. Because that's what makes this offense successful.
Yes,
if that coordinator is going to be around. If Greg Roman was
here, I prefer them at 3 tight ends. I don't disagree with that at all. But like, you're not upgrading is my point. Like, you're not getting better than Mark Andrews. Now, if
Kyle Pitts is there, you better get
bizarre world, if Kyle Pitts were there, sure, but he's not going to be there. So you're not upgrading, right? Like,
I would think about it. I would think about what
trying to move on.
I would think about what it would take for me to
take Brevin Jordan as well.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll take him as well.
I'm not telling you I wouldn't draft a tight end. I'm saying
Jordan might be more of a play though, KZ, because I feel like he could potentially be a guy that falls to the 20s, and you can potentially move up and get that guy because Pitts is probably going top 15. But
probably so.
But Brevin Jordan is probably a guy you could get, and honestly, that's probably a good idea.
The theory of draft, I have no problem with the priority being adding another tight end. My point being, like, we can complain about Mark Andrews and not playing his best football in the postseason, but Mark Andrews is still one of this team's solutions. I
agree with that.
It's like complaining about Lamar Jackson throwing that pick. Yeah, it's disastrous, but Lamar Jackson is the solution for this football team, not a problem.
I agree.
Like, we're complaining about the solutions right now, which is what makes this game so confounding. It's one thing if the story of this game is Marquise Brown dropping the football and play it against. Now, the center thing obviously is a bit of a play it against Sam type of situation. But the problems tonight were from guys that are largely. Justin Tucker is a solution for this football team. Lamar Jackson is a solution for this football team. Mark Andrews is a solution for this football team. They just didn't play well tonight, and sometimes that happens in football. And that's the awkward part about doing a show where we all want to scream and we all want to yell, and sometimes we just have to acknowledge it's the nature of football. Like, these things occur.
You're right.
Stecca, is there any? By the way, I'm so far behind on the people that do pay us money. I'm so sorry. I love you, Window Nation. I love you so much, Window Nation. Start the year off right with Window Nation's most popular deal. Put no money down, make no payments for 2 full years, and get 2 free windows for every 2 you buy. Call 866-90-NATION or go to windownation.com. Stecca, is there any question about the coaching staff going into the offseason? I can't imagine there will be, but I can imagine the questions being asked and them having to be fought off.
I don't see them changing
For what it's worth, we didn't think.
Why would they?
But wait, we didn't think they were firing Marty Mornhinweg when they did.
No.
No, we all thought they should. We didn't think they were. That's the difference. Every single one of us to a person thought
I
they
absolutely
should fire
thought that he was going to
Mornhinweg.
be gone after that playoff game.
I couldn't. When they didn't do it the year before, I said to myself, "Why the f would they do it now?"
Well, because that was different though, like Glenn, because you had a situation where you started with Joe and then you ended with Lamar, and he had no idea what he was going to do with that young kid. He had no idea how to game plan for that kid, and it was obvious.
But he didn't have a clue how to do it with Joe. He took the guy who had the biggest arm in football and said, "Let's throw it underneath a billion times."
Well, that's his.
Like,
that's been his MO.
I understood that.
Essentially,
That's why
the whole
I never
career.
understood why he was the hire, but
You're
that was
right.
sort of my point.
But
My
I think
point being,
Lamar really forced him out.
and that might be the case, right? Ultimately, look, they did fire him, and that's sort of my point being, like, to me, I have always thought that typically, when given their druthers, the Ravens would choose to stand pat. That's the way they want to do it. And when they make a change, more often than not, like, for example, when they did change for Marty Mornhinweg, it was because they thought somebody else on the staff was more suited to Lamar Jackson. Well, the only guy that's really, like, on the staff that would be in that conversation would be James Urban. And I don't know enough about James Urban as a play caller, or I don't think anybody knows anything about James Urban as a play caller to know if I would have faith in that. So now you're talking about not changing a coordinator, changing an entire offensive staff. If you hire from outside, you're not saying to that person, we're keeping everybody else here. If you hire an outside offensive coordinator, that person gets to build their own staff. And this continuity thing that we always say is a role, and it's part of the problem that quarterbacks have, is they never get any continuity. Well, if you change the coordinator, either it's because you're going to give it over to James Urban, who does not have that experience. You just are blindly having faith that Lamar likes James Urban and that will work out somehow, and so he can keep the staff from there. Or you're gutting the entire offensive staff and you lose the continuity on that side of the ball.
Screwed.
I'm not saying we're screwed. These are all the conversations that we have to have.
Do either of you see? My problem is, and I agree with what Glenn you just said, as weird as that is for me to say.
Well, I'm sure we'll yell at about something again in 20 seconds, Ken.
No. But here's my problem with the whole thing, and I'm not. Look. The Bills beat them today, and there were reasons, and I'm not. I know I tongue in cheek to a degree. Everybody should get fired after playoff losses, but I don't think that they will make the change. My only issue is I don't know that Roman has any more. Even if you gave him other weapons, I
think this is what he's going to do. Yes, this is who he is.
It.
Yeah,
this
sure.
is
and his track record says that too, KZ.
Yeah,
his track record says that he plateaus at a certain point.
But I'm gonna ask this question this way: is there someone else who you think
I don't have an answer for that.
Hang on though. Let me finish just hypothetically, right? That their philosophy is aligned with Greg Roman's idea of being predominant run team, quarterback run. Or is he really it for doing that? And if that's the case, are you okay and comfortable with someone else coming in whose idea might be more like, no, this is the NFL, the quarterback throws the ball 40 times in the NFL? That's what I'm struggling with.
All right, so do you guys believe?
Yeah, I think you have to expand the net into the college ranks and things like that. I
agree with that.
That might be fair.
Go in that direction. I don't think there's anyone in the NFL or an assistant who's ready to be a quarterback's coach who's ready to be an offensive coordinator that can do it, because it's a specialized thing. But I think you have to expand the net into college and say, okay, who are good running teams, good running quarterbacks? How have they worked with these type of guys before? Because the NFL is becoming more college-like as far as offenses go year by year. Those concepts have made it in, and some of them have stuck, and some of the minds have stuck and shown to be productive. So that's my biggest thing. Is I agree. I don't know who it is, and I don't know if it's James Urban. I mean, I know he's highly respected. I know Lamar likes him, but I don't know.
I have no idea of what a James Urban offense is.
So how do you guys feel about potentially bringing in a guy that is like a passing coordinator? So, for instance, remember LSU, Joe Brady was the passing coordinator for LSU. He eventually goes to Carolina. But, how do you feel about that? Even though this is still a run-first football team, maybe they implement some passing concepts that you and I, KZ,
even if we call it a different way, if what you're suggesting is that there needs to be a secondary consultant concept, in theory, I like that. Of course, every time we've ever done that, we end up having the too many cooks in the kitchen conversation, right? Like, that was the Juan Castillo issue years ago, where nobody really knew exactly, like, who's in charge here? Who's actually the one that's making, like, in theory, it sounds really good, and I think you're onto something.
But you think it's
in practicality,
it's too much.
I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it might be that you get the right guy and the right people, like, it all works. That's a tougher thing for me, and it's why I can't just do I'm not telling you I'll lose my mind if we find out in 2 days that the Ravens moved on from Greg Roman. I would say, okay.
I don't see that happening.
But I don't either. I don't see that happening either.
I don't think that they believe that he's the problem, and I'm not saying he's the problem.
And by the way, I don't know that that's the answer either.
That's what I was getting ready to say. Yeah. I don't think that he's necessarily the problem.
Right.
I don't think he, in critical moments, he helps either.
I think we also do need to have a fair conversation about there not being an off season this year, and if there were to be a real off season this year,
I had that conversation early on, and nobody wanted to have that conversation.
I know, but I think we need to think about whether or not that could impact. I would think that will be a factor in making a decision like that for sure.
I agree.
Jonathan, since they have begun play in 1996, we've never drafted a true number one wide receiver. Of course. I mean, a true number one wide receiver with all the skills, but most importantly, a receiver with breakaway speed that makes a defense scared. Tired of this lame crap we call offense? Finally, it's time to really look at the whole coaching staff. Yes, Harbaugh. Oh, Jonathan.
So
we were doing so well.
So that's not true. Hollywood does have a breakaway speed. The problem is that he's not best suited outside. He's best suited because he is not a guy that is going to get the defender off of him. He's a guy that needs to be off the line. He's a guy that needs to stay in the slot.
Yes, of
and
course.
He can be a productive football player. The problem is that the Ravens continue to try to put him outside because they believe he's the number one receiver. And look,
and also because they don't really feel like they have those guys.
And that's another thing. They don't feel like they have guys to put outside. So that is the issue. So I don't agree with the whole speed thing. I think if you utilize Hollywood the way he should be utilized, which is the slot position, he'll be fine.
This is right.
You just got to find a guy that can do the outside
we've
thing.
Been doing that for 25 years.
I hear you.
We've been having that
agree.
conversation for 25.
Hey man, Torrey is probably the closest to the best thing that we got in terms of what we drafted.
Yes, correct. I mean that's the reality. But he does say, by the way, he's not saying fire Harbaugh. He's just saying taking a hard look. Forrester and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. Like when he said if they don't win a playoff game, you have to do soul searching. You have to really think about what type of organization you are. I mean, they have to do that every year. If you don't win a Super Bowl, they kind of have to do that, and they will do an amount of that. But I don't know what that means exactly. Like, what do you want John Harbaugh? Maybe I should block Ken. Maybe I should. What do you want John Harbaugh to do differently?
Did I hear a question?
Oh, stop it. Tim, I love y'all, but I need a mug of whiskey. I'll listen tomorrow. Tim, I understand. From Scott, Greg Roman sucks, but this is really an Eric DaCosta problem. We need a number one receiver and probably another really good one.
It's a combination. Like let's not do that. It's a combination deal.
There's a lot of things.
This is an organizational issue.
Yes.
I mean, this has been going on forever. I mean, this was an Ozzie issue. This was a blind spot for Ozzie. Ozzie trained Eric. It's a blind spot for Eric. But I just and I just want to go back to the passing coordinator thing. If somebody will come in and maybe it's just a blind spot with Roman right now for route combinations because he's such a run heavy guy, but the route combinations and where they put people, you watch it. I'm not comparing these guys, but you watch Devontae Adams in the game before, and he's coming across formations. He's coming one way across the formation, coming back the other way across the formation.
You're talking about the touchdown they scored earlier, which was absolutely fascinating.
Was it, or the fact that 33 just decided
there was
to
that
stand
too,
there.
right? I don't disagree with that.
I understand that, but they're scheming their number one receiver open.
Agree.
They're not just having a guy stand on the outside and say, okay, this is your side of the field. You need to beat your guy one-on-one. I feel that they have missed an opportunity, and we've talked about this. They've never used Hollywood Brown the way I thought they would when he was drafted. They keep him outside way too much. They don't put him in motion. They don't let him come across the formation enough. They don't use crossing patterns. They don't use picks.
And this goes to the argument that people have had. They should be using him more like Tyreek Hill. And that, again,
I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear.
He's not Tyreek Hill. That's fair. But
I'm not saying he's that guy, but they should be using him more like that. A guy that just doesn't line up, and he could be anywhere in the formation. And this time he's on the left, and next time he's on the right, and this time he's in the slot, and this time he's in motion and doing a quick slant. Something to get him open. I agree that he can be a really good weapon, but they're very bland in how they use they're scared to throw in the middle of the field a lot of times, especially early in games. And the way they use him, it's like, look, he gets behind the defense, but he doesn't get behind the defense every single route.
Right.
And it just something that, to me, whatever personnel is here next year, as far as players, coaches, whatever, that's like the biggest concern that I've been complaining about day one this year, is that their route combinations just are so high schoolish. It's terrible.
We've always been hard on them about their route combinations, and that's why I asked about the passing coordinator situation. Even though this is a run-first football team, maybe you can bring someone that can help implement some more fancy ways.
I like the thought. I really like the thought. It's so tricky to make those types of situations work, right?
But maybe you do get a guy from the college ranks, because he is trying to get himself established on an NFL level, and so he's not going to step on some toes of guys that are veterans.
I think without making someone a coordinator, in order to pull that off, it has to be such a unique situation, right? Like someone who happened to be fired or was on a staff that got fired, unless you're giving someone the coordinator job altogether, right? Like then you can get them to come up. To say to a college coordinator who has a good job, hey, we want you to come up here. Well, what's the role? Well, it's kind of undefined. That's a really difficult thing to sell somebody.
You telling me that a guy from a college level won't go to an NFL level?
They need to know what the job is. They've got a good job.
I don't think that they care.
It's really that's tough. When you've got a good job, when you've got a job that you're comfortable in.
Do you want to make it to the big leagues or not?
100%. But
okay,
also when you're hired
to take that job.
But when you're hired to a job that doesn't really exist, when you're given a title like offensive or whatever you want to give it, offensive quality control, whatever that thing is, it also sounds like the type of thing that's gone the next year. Like you don't know.
But now that's on my resume.
I hear you, and the right person might take that. It depends on how good your job is in college. If you've got a really good job in college, you're probably going to say, "Why would I ever stop being the offensive coordinator at Baylor, whatever it is, where I'm getting paid very well, my life is very good here, the expectations are not unreasonable, this coach is going to be here for some time, I can be happy here."
You're not going to give that job to Steve Sarkisian, right?
Right.
You're not going to give it to him, but maybe a guy that's about 25 years old.
And that's right, finding who that person is. Sure, right. Fine, finding who that person is. AJ, Eric DeCosta's an I love you, AJ. I don't know why, but I love you. Eric DeCosta's an arrogant guy who thinks Maryland wide receivers suck like Diggs and Moore, and trades for sucky Maryland players.
Wait, is that an EDC thing or is that an Ozzy thing?
They both would have been Ozzy, right? Yeah, they both would have been Ozzy.
The Diggs, this is his what? How many seasons? Third or fourth?
No, it's beyond that at this point. Yeah.
Okay,
like 6.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is an Ozzy thing, and that's not fair to Eric DeCosta.
He says, keep Judon. At least we went further than the Steelers. All right, so that obviously, we talked about this last week, Rita. This is the most fascinating domino of the personnel issue for the Ravens this offseason, is what is happening moving forward when it comes to pass rush. And there is...
Well, did you like what you saw tonight?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
But this goes back to what... Remember when you and I had this conversation a week ago, and I said, if there is some world where you just decide... we're going to attempt to keep drafting it. We're not paying the bonkers money to either one of these guys. We also think that puts us in a better position to sign Orlando Brown long-term. We think long-term as a team, what we are, we're a running football team. We want to solidify the 2 tackle spots, and we think we can find more Zadarius Smiths moving forward. It's perilous. I don't love it, but A year ago, we sat here and played the game and said, well, you're going to tag Matt Judon, and what it's going to do is going to give you one more year to have a better feel of what it is that you're going to do. Who's got a good feel 1 year later? Anybody?
I do.
Yeah? What's your feel, Kay?
I feel I can draft or sign somebody cheaper to do the same thing that they did.
Okay? That's what I'm sort of suggesting. I don't like the idea of going into next year without feeling good about pass rush. But I don't feel all that good about pass rush right now. So,
I'm not paying either of those guys any money. No way.
Who are we talking about?
Judon and Ngakoue. Those two guys is what we're talking about.
Yeah. I'm not paying either one of them.
Then you're left with no pass rushers.
And I'm not tagging them either.
I mean, this is the reality. Like
the guy that y'all needed to sign is gone, and he is a baller in Green Bay.
He's quite good.
So Judon is a nice guy and he plays well. But honestly, can we be real here, y'all? Pernell McPhee in the last 2 weeks has played out of his mind and played on a level that we have loved. We would have loved Judon to be playing.
I do wonder if there is a possibility that Matt Judon doesn't like what he finds on the open market. I do wonder,
and potentially comes back as a result.
If that now, it's still going to be for money. Like this isn't getting him back down to $10 million. That's not the case. But I do wonder if you allow Matt Judon to hit the open market, if it's not the overwhelming number that you might think it would have been. There are still always teams that have money, but especially if the cap is going down next season.
And that's happening.
I wonder if there's a world in which you let him hit the open market. That market just isn't as robust as we thought it might be a year ago, and perhaps it's still an option at a slightly lesser number. I think that, to me, at this point, is about the only scenario where I see it happening. That's not all that dissimilar to how they treated Brandon Williams, right? They said to Brandon Williams, look, we love you. Go out and find out, right? Go out and find out what it is. And
same thing. They say Jimmy the same thing. They told Jimmy to go check the market. Jimmy was like, oh, I don't like that, so I'm going to come back.
And so that's the reality. Now,
well, Judon will get
and that's the thing. It might be that pass rush is so... Remember, like, we didn't...
He's going
when Zadarius Smith got the money he got, we all were like, okay, we like Zadarius, but at that money, go right ahead.
Yeah, but now we see what he's doing, and it's like, damn, he's playing that contract.
Of course, now we know that it would have been worth more than the money that they gave to Zadarius Smith. Understand that. But I don't know.
How funny would that be if Judon does the same thing if he goes somewhere else?
I mean,
it would be funny.
Not funny. Not the way that you. I mean, not really funny.
I'm laughing.
A different type of funny.
I'm laughing at the thought because it's funny in a good and a bad way.
Josh just says, "Great work, defense." Look, I mean,
they do. Look, the defense did what they had to do,
with the exception of the pass rush. With the exception of
minus that
10 points.
I mean, that's it. They gave up 10 points.
You're right. They did give up 10 points. And honestly, at the end of the day, while he did have a lot of time and I didn't like it, it was mainly because guys weren't open and guys had to fight and find a way to get open on offense down the field. So, and minus the Peters peeking in the backfield where he's lucky that Stephon Diggs was overthrown, they weren't really throwing the ball a lot down the field, and probably because of the wind wasn't allowing them to do too much. So, look, the defense did what they were supposed to do. This, to me, is solely on what the offense was not able to do. And yes, a lot of it has to do with what the Buffalo's defense decided that they wanted to do. We knew that they were going to zone these guys. We did not know that they were going to keep adding extra guys for a pass rush. Great. But what the offense did not do is the bigger story of this football game.
Scott, the pick six was the product of Lamar trying to do too much. Our offense is too one-dimensional. I don't think that's what it was. He just didn't see the defender. Yeah. I don't think it was him trying to do too much. He didn't see the defender. He missed it, and he made a bad throw.
He made a bad throw. It happened.
I think he was trying to do what was necessary. They needed to score a touchdown there. He was trying to throw the ball to the end zone. And by the way, again, we all know the play before. We're going to obsess over the pick six, right? The play before, where it was remarkable he got the throw away, even to have an incomplete.
Oh, Hollywood?
But, no, who was it that was to work?
It was Brown, right?
Was it Brown?
Yeah,
was it Brown?
It was Brown, and he threw the ball.
Wide open.
Yeah, but the pressure was there.
And that's the problem.
So let's not do that. Like, if we're going to tell the story about Brown being open, we also have to tell the story about the front end got the pressure.
I'm not blaming it on Lamar. I'm saying if the pressure's not there, that is a wide
that's
open
a touchdown. But it was, so that's why it wasn't. And so that's why I say a lot of it has to do with what Buffalo's defense did do and what the Ravens weren't prepared for. So there's that part.
A bunch of people were going back and forth on what we were talking about with the extra man and the adjustments. I'm not going to read through all of these. It's split too, by the way. Except for Jonathan, he was the loudest. Like Eric, facts, Glenn, Andrew Steck. I hate saying Ken is right, but he's right. There's just responses to everything. Jonathan, however, goes all caps. Yes, all caps.
Wait, he said all caps?
He said yes, all caps, as he typed in all caps.
Okay.
Appreciate that. No adjustments from this team. Glenn, stop sugarcoating. All right, that's what he said.
Yeah, Glenn.
Whatever their adjustments were, it weren't good enough. Let's be real here.
By the way, Stecca also says, Stecca says, I was wrong. There have only been 9 offensive coordinators in Ravens history. Does that count when Brian Billick was the offensive coordinator? Because that would make it 10 if that were the case. I believe that I am right because, as you remember, when he fired Jim Fossil, he made himself the offensive coordinator at that point. So I think I'm back in the win column, you jerk.
Win column.
Gerard, let's be real. Real quick. If Huntley hits Hollywood and Dobbins after the missed field goal from Buffalo, it's tie game. Just saying.
No.
Rita doesn't.
No.
Rita, the game ended
when Lamar went down.
At the moment when Lamar went down.
When Lamar went down, the game was over. I don't know what else to tell y'all.
Look, I mean, I'm largely in agreement. He's not wrong in that
it didn't happen, so he is wrong. Next, go ahead, KZ. Say what you was gonna say. It didn't happen. Move along.
It didn't happen.
It's like, seriously, why are we doing this hypothetical shit? It didn't happen. Get out of my face.
I'm sorry. The game ended on the pick 6. It just did.
I disagree with that. I disagree that it ended on the pick 6. I disagree with that.
Pick 6. 14.
Well, the very next series is when he went down.
That I agree with.
15-point switch. It just.
I have no problem with you saying it wasn't happening. What I disagree with saying it was over. If they go down and they score on the next drive and there's 8 minutes left, it's not as if Buffalo was world beating on offense tonight. The notion that they were just going to grind the game away. They can't run the ball. Like, they weren't grinding the game away.
And they know they can't run the ball, and they was like, well, we ain't going to run the ball.
I agree that it's wildly unlikely that they were coming back once the pick 6 happened. But what happened was Lamar got hurt. It was a disaster, the whole deal. I don't want to keep going through it. From Paul, Lamar needs his own Shannon Sharp or Anquan Bolden, the veteran receiver that is going to say, I got your back, kid. Throw me the ball and I'll make the play. And they actually come through regularly. Don't see that player currently on the roster. Andrews is closest, and he isn't consistent enough for me to be that guy. I don't think you're wrong about that. It's not fun. Again, not every team has those guys. We have to be realistic about too. It's not like there are 20 of those players in the NFL. There's a handful of guys that are like that. That's the reality. Even some guys that we trust aren't like those types of players. Like Stephon Diggs is not the physical type of player. You're not throwing the back shoulder Anquan Bolden 3rd and 1 play in the Super Bowl is because of Anquan Bolden's physicality. You trust him to win despite the fact that Carlos Rogers is all over him. Even Stephon Diggs, who we would all crawl over broken glass to have on our team, is a different type of player than those guys are. His is about route running and finding a way to find the space to operate with. Finding that type of guy is rare. It's rare. People around.
It's rare, Glenn, but those guys are available this off season.
No, you want to say that?
Who do you like, KZ?
Oh, give me Allen Robinson.
Right. So, and that's Allen Robinson is going to be so much the most desired wide receiver in the market that the money is going to be.
Everybody wants Allen Robinson. So who else do you like?
But that's why we're not paying these pass rushers, because this will help the team more than anything is to go get a guy like that.
Well, I mean, trust me, I'm all in on the Ravens going and getting Allen Robinson. I just find there's 32 teams that all want to sign Allen Robinson this offseason.
That's my problem. So who's next?
I'm not counting on that occurring.
Who's next?
Well, my next guy, I think may make more than Allen Robinson, and that's probably Chris Godwin.
Out of Tampa?
I don't know that he makes more, but I hear the argument. He's younger. He's not as injury prone. Like, I get what you're going to say. I like Chris Godwin. I do like Chris Godwin. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a nice football player. I don't think he's the same type of guy that you're talking about. Like, I like him, and I think he's a good fit. But I don't like that. Allen Robinson is closer to being that type of guy that we're talking about, that Anquan Bolden type, than I think Chris Godwin is. I think Chris Godwin's a hell of a football player, though, and he's productive.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that. But I mean, if we can't get Allen Robinson, I mean, give me Godwin. Go get a guy. I mean, this is the year. I mean, you don't have a lot of picks. Go get a guy.
Look, I'm not telling you that. Trust me, I would love for the Ravens to go get Allen Robinson. I would love for that to be the case. You're just playing your odds, and it still also requires a veteran, a wide receiver to want to take Baltimore's money. And I think you're still going to struggle with that.
I still think people want to play with Lamar.
I think they want to play with Lamar until their agent reminds them that they might need to get money again somewhere else, and that it's an offense that's not going to throw the ball like other places are.
They will throw the ball. Like, all right, like Mr. Brown had 8 touchdowns. They will throw the ball,
but not
enough.
It's enough. Sure, they'll throw the ball enough, but the notion that you can go.
No, I'm saying enough of that conversation. People will want to play with Lamar because everybody sees that he needs a guy.
I don't disagree with that part, but if this is between, say, coming to play with Lamar or going to, let's say, the Chargers, where right now it's an offense that's wildly productive with a good quarterback.
Where's that person going to get in? Where's that person? Please explain it to me. No, explain it, because they got Mike Williams, they got Keenan Allen,
the moment
that
Allen Robinson shows up in L.A., everyone not named Keenan Allen doesn't matter anymore.
Mike Williams is there. He
That's
still
fine.
exists.
They like him. The moment they have Allen Robinson, they don't give a rat's ass about him
They're not going to have
anymore.
a place for him. Dude was throwing the guys that we don't even know the names
I'm aware of
at
that.
this point.
They're not Allen Robinson. If they have a chance to get Allen Robinson, they're going to want to. I'm not saying that Allen Robinson is going to the Chargers, by the way. The notion that
Give me another team, Glenn. I don't like that one. I don't like that example. I don't like that example. They already got
from Brandon. RG3 is on par with guys who will be satisfied with being a backup. No, he's not. He's not. I disagree with that, but I'll get back to it.
What, being a backup?
Yeah.
Well, he's done with being a starter, so he better be happy with being a backup.
What he's saying is RG3 is on par with anybody else that would be a backup quarterback in the NFL. I disagree with that.
Oh,
I disagree with that.
Okay.
The better comparison to make, Ken, isn't Blake Bortles. It's that the Raiders went out and got Marcus Mariota. That's the better comparison to the type of guy that you're talking about.
There you go.
That's fair.
Marcus Mariota is someone that we know can be an NFL quarterback. We just don't think he's a high-level quarterback, and there wasn't a situation for a team to say, well, you can be our guy. What there was a situation where he looked at it and said, look, Derek Carr's been kind of a question mark, so, like...
he ain't going nowhere.
No, now, I agree, but Marcus Mariota made the decision going into the season thinking there was a chance that Derek Carr might stink it up this year, and if he did, he could slide in and become the quarterback. As it turns out, Derek Carr played quite well, and so that went out the window, right?
Passing concepts helped him, by the way.
That's the type. That's the type of guy. Robert Griffin III was a guy that nobody in the NFL wanted, and I need to say there's a nice. I don't think he's a terrible person. I don't think
he's a good person. We know that.
The entire NFL made a decision.
How is he as a football player?
The entire NFL made a decision. Nobody wanted him as their third string quarterback. He was on the street.
He couldn't have been on there that long because he was with Cleveland, the year before?
He spent at least an entire season unemployed. At least an entire NFL season unemployed. An entire year. A bunch of teams said, we don't even want you to come in here to be... And then the Ravens went and got him to be their third string quarterback at that point. Ultimately became... He's not that guy. There is a difference between those guys. You need a better backup quarterback option than Robert Griffin III. Now, again, that's hard. There's not a lot of those guys. Who is that guy right now? I don't know what's going to happen in D.C. Maybe the answer is Kyle Allen. If he's healthy, Kyle Allen might be a better option to be a guy that could win you 2 games if necessary. Hell, maybe it's Alex Smith. I don't.
Leave me alone.
Yeah, Alex Smith is probably about the caliber of RG3 at this point. That's probably fair. I don't know who the guy is off the top of my head, but there is something. There is something between RG3 and this group that we're talking about. It's the Mariota type that I'm looking for. It ain't Bortles, though. It sure as F ain't Bortles. That's definitely not the guy. He also says that there was another back at Ohio State when Dobbins was there, and that's why they didn't throw to him. I mean, fine, but there's an issue with Dobbins and catching the football. That's pretty clear.
And potentially he works on that in the offseason and he becomes a better player. He's a rookie.
You have to hope that's the case, yes.
It happens.
I have to hope that's the case. Paul G., this team needs a legit number 1 receiver. Blah, blah, we'll keep doing this. Agreed. We'll talk about that throughout the course of the offseason. Scott, if Snead and Boykin are starting on your offense, you won't make it to a Super Bowl. This is a stat from Trey Wingo, apparently. The Ravens had more first downs, were better on third down, had more total yards, ran more plays, and had 12 more minutes of possession and lost. 100-yard turnover and a backup quarterback changed everything.
Yes, it does. 100%. It does.
And missing kicks, throw those things in, right? They got a lot of those yards on drives that didn't...
First series, they drove down the field.
And they didn't come away with any points.
Didn't have points.
Playing in the wind doesn't help.
No.
From Scott, Harbaugh will never fire Greg Roman, unfortunately. Harbaugh was closer with Marty Morningweg and fired him. They were closer.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't agree with that.
I think he was closer with Cam Cameron. I would need to know more about.
He was definitely closer with Marty
100%
than he was with anybody.
He might have been closer with Cam than he was. I'd still need to know more about that. It's not that I don't think that John and Greg are close. I just don't know of them being as close as I knew some of the other guys.
Well, we obviously know that they have some type of relationship, right?
Yes,
because
correct.
Greg was the 49ers offensive coordinator with his brother, so he has a familiarity at the very least. But I agree with you. I think that what he had with Marty Morningwig obviously was way different because they worked together at one point.
Yes, 100%.
Marty
Morningweg, he thought of Marty Morningweg as a bit of a mentor.
Yes, he believed
100%.
he was a mentor, and that was a very hard decision for him to make in doing so as well. So I don't necessarily agree with that.
I'm not saying again. I'm still not saying that there's no chance he will, or that he definitely.
I just don't agree with that logic.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't think we're giving enough credence. Andrew Steck is replying to that Trey Wingo comment. The turnover was so backbreaking. They were down 7, but moving the ball, you go and punch back.
I agree.
By tying the game there, you have a ton of momentum.
Yep.
That one play truly ended the game. Not saying you guarantee a win if you go down and tie it there, but after playing so poorly in the first half and being tied, you have to imagine things start looking up if you don't get that punch. Look,
I'm with you that I think that the game is over when he is out because I think you still have an opportunity to turn things around.
I mean this. I actually tweeted something out. I still had this thought in my mind. I said, as of a week ago, the Ravens, Lamar Jackson had never won a game where he trailed by 10 points. As of right now, he's never won a game where he's trailed by 14. Then I said, my favorite Brittany Howard song is History Repeats. Right? Like I still had this feeling like this game, it's not being dominated by the Bills. It's still there. Now, there's no margin for error, and unfortunately, the first thing that we saw afterwards was an error, right?
But honestly, though, Glenn and KZ, it wasn't just that error. There were other errors, like you said, the JK not catching the third down
I'm saying
pass.
from down 14, from the moment you went down 14.
I'm just making the point, like they had opportunities
totality,
to
100%.
continue to have the football and continue to move the ball downfield, and it just didn't happen.
But
that one was just the one that.
But I'm saying even after you fell down by 14. You could. There was plenty of time.
And that's why
I'm not.
That's why I didn't think it was over then.
Well,
yeah, I agree.
As soon as there was a bad snap, that was the error. You had no margin for error. There couldn't be a bad snap at that point. One bad snap doomed everything. One bad snap doomed.
I agree.
And I don't know that it would have happened, but I don't think it was over until that occurred. Let me fly through some of these. Paul, if Ralph Friedgen, we're doing that. If Ralph Friedgen wants to get back into coaching, I'll take him as our passing game coordinator. I don't think that's going to be the answer.
Lord.
I had lunch with Ralph not that long ago. It was great. I don't think that Ralph is in a place that coaching will ever be an option for him again. Not that I even want to entertain the idea that it's a good thought. I love you, bud, but that's bad thought. From AJ, Judon is way better than Yannick. I don't know what they saw Unique, to trade for him as a rental. Well, they saw a guy that was highly productive as a pass rusher. I mean, what do you mean when you don't know what they saw in him? He was a highly productive pass rusher. Now, the conversation, can we always talk about this? If there's something that the Ravens don't do at all, it's the just let somebody come be a pass rusher thing. Do nothing else. Your one job here is to go after quarterbacks and nothing other than that. The Ravens don't do that.
No.
It's not in their DNA.
It's a problem.
I mean, they had some really good defenses despite it over the years. Let's be fair about that. They've had.
I understand, but what they try. See, this is where the problem comes in. I mean, even Judon. I mean, Judon came in as the all-time sack leader in college, and I know he played at a smaller school,
very small school.
Bowser. I mean, Bowser has turned into a pretty good, complete linebacker, but coming into the NFL, it's like. That guy got out after the passer. Like, he was almost unstoppable coming after the passer. It's like I wish they would bring in. That's the flip side of this. You're right, of just going out and bringing in rookies or other guys that are just pass rush guys because you have to set the edge and you have to be in coverage and all this stuff. And it's.
No, I mean, look, again, Matt Judon, I think, is the part that we don't want to talk about is that he's become a really nice, complete linebacker.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
Really nice complete linebackers don't get $25 million a year on the open market, right? Like, that's not the way it works. Terrell Suggs became an unbelievably complete linebacker as his career went on. They have found success doing that. But yes, where the Ngakoue thing might have gone wrong is that other teams said to him, all you got to do is go rush passers. Nothing else. You don't have to worry about anything else.
Yeah.
Your only role is getting after the quarterback, and the Ravens just don't. They don't let, and that's another thing that's not unique to any particular coordinator. They wouldn't let Paul Kruger do that once upon a time. They will not allow players to just go get the quarterback types of players.
Right.
I mean, I wish, like Ferguson, I mean, who can't even be active. Like, he would be a guy, to me, that would be perfect. Third down, come in, just go get the quarterback. Obvious passing situation. Go get the quarterback.
I mean, I don't inherently. I
agree.
Disagree with that. Again, it's probably easier said than done. I mean, like, we're probably not being completely fair to the argument, but inherently, I don't disagree. A couple of things. One, Matt Judon. This is a quote. Jeff Zrebeck. I don't know what's going to happen next year. The last 5 years have been a hell of a ride. I love the Ravens and this organization. I just want to thank him. I mean, that sounds like a guy who probably thinks that he's going to be playing elsewhere.
Yeah,
but
I mean, he doesn't.
Why wouldn't he expect
has to
that?
say that,
Yeah.
because he doesn't have a contract, and so there's that part.
Apparently, Lamar will be able to travel back with the team tonight. That's good. Happy to hear that. It's not going to change anything, unfortunately. Like, I don't want to be dismissive of that.
I'm glad. I am glad he was okay, because I was obviously worried about him. I wasn't sure, but I mean, seeing him try
I had a lot of people, and I responded poorly to it. I had a lot of people that were asking me about why that wasn't a low hit on Lamar, and at first,
it didn't look low.
It was. If it wasn't at the knee, it was a half inch.
Oh, we talking about
the
the guy on the guy that tackled him down below.
Yes, it was a half inch above the knee. But
that's a textbook
in thinking
tackle,
more
though.
through, well, I'm not even in thinking more through the rule. While we knew he was running to try to throw, he was a runner at that point. He was running backwards. He was not stepping in to make a throw. He was running backwards. He was a runner at that point. And when you're a runner, you lose that type of protection for that type of hit. So I am fine. First of all, it would have felt really awkward bailing out what a disaster of a play that was by throwing a flag there anyway. But beyond that, even thinking through the letter of the law, he was running at that point. Now, he was running to try to find a way to get rid of the ball, but he was running when that play was made. He was a runner. I think that's the right call to not throw a flag there, even if the hit was at the knee. I think that was the right call. Dominic Foxworth says on Twitter, again, Andrew's just sharing tweets with me. Thanks, buddy. You didn't go back and check to see if I'm right, though, about adding Brian Billick to the list. Can't help but notice that you didn't do that. Tried to tell me I was wrong. Not going back to double check on that. Thanks, Stecca. A good point. A problem with the Ravens' passing attack. The Bills want to play zone to guard against Lamar's scramble, but the Ravens are running 3-man routes. It's hard to challenge 6 or 7 guys in coverage with only a tight end wide receiver.
Thank you. And we knew going into the game, guys, they were running that because the lady from ESPN tweeted that.
Diana
tweeted that. We knew that that's what they were going to do. And they don't have the personnel to make it work. And that is the bottom line here. They don't have the guys to make it work.
Steck is trying to get around telling me I'm right about something. He says Billick was never officially listed as an offensive coordinator. He was the offensive coordinator. That's 10.
Yeah, I want to say when Fassel got fired, but that was in season, so maybe he's not counting. But it should count.
I win.
Let it go.
I win.
Let it go?
That's what matters here. I win. That's what's important.
See, you don't understand, KZ. We 2 Virgos in here. We have to have the win here. We have to have the win.
So true.
Look, I want Glenn to win as many things as he can right now because he's got a problem coming up.
No, I got the point tonight, so I'm back within 1. I'm not happy about it. I would have gladly. In fact, I bet I put American dollars the other way. So we do this picks contest on Glenn Clark Radio, and I was down 2 coming into this weekend, so I had to take some chances in order to. And so I took Buffalo, and so I'm back within 1, and so I'm like, that's good news. But I didn't actually think that was the case, so I went and took my American dollars and I put them on the Baltimore Ravens. So while I got some good news, I lost tangible American dollars tonight on top of everything else. Not great.
Nope.
All right. We need to grab a break. We'll come back in. I normally this is the part we start looking ahead to next week.
Next week, I'll be at home watching the AFC and NFC championship.
The good news for you is you don't have to deal with that conundrum we were talking about last week, where you're like, I've been so good, but am I going to go to...
Hey, man.
Don't have to worry about that.
I'm actually not mad because...
Next year...
I have been very cautious about coronavirus, and now I don't have to risk it all because the Ravens have gone to the Super Bowl. And maybe they'll go when more people can actually attend, and they'll have a number one wide receiver.
Oh, you got some hookups in L.A., right? Like, we can go out there next year, right?
Yeah.
Like, we can go have a time.
And they actually have some, like me and KZ been asking for some better passing concepts and a number one wide receiver that can help them get all the way there.
There is also more good news. Drew Forrester has to eat an Oreo Spam sandwich. On top of everything else,
God.
there is some more good news there. All right, we'll come back in. We'll put the finishing touches. Oh, God, on Project Game Day for the season. I don't like saying that.
Yes, it is.
Ah, that sucks. All right, that's next. We're in the Chesapeake Employers Insurance studio of PressBox. It is the Project Game Day postgame show after the Ravens season sadly comes to a close this evening. They lose to the Buffalo Bills. It's just kind of what it is. Be right back. Window Nation is kicking off the new year with their most popular deal to help you afford new Window Nation windows. Just call today and make no payments for 2 full years. That's not all. Get 2 free windows for every 2 you buy and make no down payment. Make no payments at all and pay no interest for 2 full years. Use the savings you save to pay off your high-interest holiday credit card bills. Call 866-90-NATION or go to windownation.com. Start the new year with new windows and incredible savings. Tell them Glenn Clark sent you.
Glory Days Grill Fall-Winter Seasonal Menu is now available for dine-in, dine-out, on the patio, or to go. It's a new season, so enjoy new flavors. Try their new shrimp appetizers, homemade meatloaf, impossible cheesesteaks, and more. They're open from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. Visit GloryDaysGrill.com for a location near you. From the Glory Days Grill family, stay healthy and positive during this challenging time in our community.
Looking to get one up on the competition? Supercharge your computer skills. CCBC has classes at all levels from beginner to expert coder. Explore Microsoft Office, gaming, or even ethical hacker. Maybe hardware is your gig. Become A+ certified. All tuition free if you qualify. Call 443-840-4700 or visit ccbcmd.edu/quickreg.
C3 American Exteriors is the area's best and most trusted roof and siding specialists. C3 is also an insurance adjuster's worst nightmare and a homeowner's dream come true. With all of the bad weather, chances are you have some roof and siding damage. Call C3 American Exteriors now to get your roof and siding repairs for the cost of your deductible. Don't let the insurance industry get one over on you. C3 guarantees a 48-hour rapid response. Call 401-9797 or go to c3america.com for a free analysis.
With Wise Market's lowest price guarantee, we guarantee the lowest price in the area. If a local competitor advertises any of our tagged lowest price guarantee items at a lower price, we'll give you double the difference with purchase.
Eat better, spend less, that's Wise.
If you're looking to make an impact, there's no better place to do that than the U.S. Army. Whether your goal is to fight and cure deadly diseases, develop technologies, or seek adventures across the globe, the Army is where all of that can happen, and so much more. The Army is a team of 1 million individuals working together to take on the most complex problems in the nation and the world, and to win. Ask yourself, what's your warrior? Go to army.com/Baltimore to find out. To learn more, contact your local Army recruiter and find us on social media at U.S. Army Baltimore.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a wide range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Toyota to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. Back in here in the Chesapeake Employers Insurance Studio, Project Game Day postgame show.
Did KZ leave us?
No, I still got KZ.
Oh, okay.
I just muted him while we were in break. Glenn, Rita, KZ, winding down for the season, which I hate saying. It's just, it's what it is. That's what happens.
I'm at peace, man. Like,
This is what we're going to finish with. I'll give it to both of you, and then I'll get, because it's the conversation that we had a little bit on my show, and I brought up with you a couple weeks ago, and even into last week. Now that it's over, Was this season a success for the Baltimore Ravens?
They got a playoff game, which was a big deal. You know, we heard a lot of conversation about that going into the Titans game, particularly because of the way that rivalry has been renewed. So I think that was important for them. So I think while the Super Bowl is the ultimate goal, and no, that is not a success because they haven't reached that point, I think that getting that first playoff win for Lamar is a success that you would like to see develop and grow. With the personnel that they have, I think that is important too, because they don't go 11-5 if they don't have Lamar Jackson as their quarterback. I 100% believe. So I think,
unless they have Aaron Rodgers as their,
okay,
you know what
yes.
Yes,
Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes.
Right, correct.
I don't know if Deshaun Watson can do because that.
He couldn't make the Texans,
and that's been an argument too. I've seen a lot of people argue about that because we know that Deshaun Watson is not happy with his situation in Houston, is looking to be moved, and I think Jeff Schwartz did a thing about that.
That was stupid.
It was stupid. I'm just making a point that you did have people though that agreed with his point that they would think that the Ravens would be an upgrade with Deshaun Watson, and I don't agree with that, particularly with the way that this offense is currently built.
I think Deshaun Watson's a damn good quarterback.
But with the way that this offense is currently built, he would not do well here, and that's why Lamar is as valuable as he is now. So in that regard, Glenn, yes, I do consider it a success in that way, but overall, the Super Bowl is the ultimate goal, and they didn't reach that, so no. I know I'm saying
you really are,
no,
man.
But
you really are
because I'm seeing it. I see it multifaceted. Like
I understand, but I'm gonna gun to your head.
Okay,
gun to your head.
Like Super Bowl, no, they didn't. That is not a success for them. But they have made some things happen with a lot of adversity that they had going into the season, losing a tight end, having everybody essentially have COVID,
right?
And they still found a way to win a playoff game.
Right, I'm gonna let Ken answer, then I know where you're going. Ken, was the season a success?
Yeah. It was. The reason it was is simply because they got that playoff win, and if they hadn't beaten the Titans, our conversations would have been just awful.
Yep.
Especially for me, because I was I'm not a fan of the coaches, but that's besides of the head coach.
He can't stop himself. He can't do it. He just can't do it.
I'm just not. But I also, he won a playoff game, and so he's the coach for life. It's fine. It's I'll just complain about the certain things that he doesn't do well. But yeah, it's a success. Anybody who thought that they were going to go 14-2. Again, those seasons just don't happen, especially, with them really not adding, anything significant on offense. In fact, losing stuff on offense. Yep. So yeah, it's a success. It's something to build on, and you got to get into the playoffs. They got into the playoffs. It's hard to get into the playoffs. They won a playoff game. They did a lot of things in the off season to specifically win that playoff game against that specific team. I think the next step is to build a team that can go further in the playoffs and can play well against any type of team, and not just be built to beat the Tennessee Titans.
So let me pose it this way. I don't think this season was a success, but I still think they're trending in the right direction as an organization. I think good things occurred this season, but the truth is they made it no further this year than they did a year ago. Like, we can say they won a playoff game. They did. A year ago, they didn't have to play in the first round of the playoffs. I don't know what would have happened if they would have played then. And it's good that they have that monkey off their back. That's a good thing. I like that. And I still think that as a whole, they are trending. But I don't think that right now, do you believe that the Baltimore Ravens are a top 5 NFL team going into 2021? Not knowing, again, I know crazy things can occur, but without assuming...
How do you count them out?
I'm saying right now, would you call them a top 5 team going into next year?
Yes, because Lamar is the quarterback.
Okay.
With that personnel, yeah, and they got 11 wins, Yeah.
I mean, I like Lamar Jackson. Don't get me wrong, but looking at the team as a whole, I don't know that I see
If
that.
that dude can get those guys to win 11 games, you have to account for them to be a good football team. That's all I'm
but
saying.
there's a difference between. I think they're a really good football team. I don't know if they're a top 5
top
team.
6. How's that? Can I be top 6?
7.
You're going the other way.
You know who ain't top 5? The Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, I know that's true. I know that's true.
Well, a lot of people
to me,
had them top 5.
To me, going into next year, KC and Buffalo are ahead of them
Yes.
in the AFC.
Yes.
I don't think anybody else is.
Yeah. I'm fine with that. I think Green Bay is still ahead of them unless Aaron Rodgers just decides to retire.
I said it. In the AFC, you have those two teams that are ahead of them. Yeah. And in the NFC, you have Green Bay and maybe Tampa, depending on how that goes.
New Orleans has dragged Tampa twice, KZ.
But I think you have to put New Orleans in the conversation. Again, we don't know if those guys are retiring. And
back next year.
Right.
So I think if Breeze is gone, which is rumored, I don't think
if he's gone, then they're not. I agree with that. If he's gone, they're not. But they still have a damn good defense, and they have the ability to go get a quarterback this offseason that, frankly, could be better than Drew Brees at this point. Like, that is...
I heard Deshaun
that's
Watson
why I
is
said
available.
5 or 6. I mean,
could you imagine?
I can make the argument for 5, yeah.
Could you imagine Deshaun Watson in New Orleans? Holy S.
Yeah, we're just
I don't want to.
It's way better than thinking about him in Pittsburgh. It's way better than having that thought. It's way better.
Or Washington, because I'm still petty, baby. I don't root for no Washington teams around here.
I'm with you on that. I think that you still like where the Ravens are as a whole.
Yes.
That's the best way I can say it. This season alone, I think the standard needed to be higher.
Yes,
to call it a success.
I don't disagree with you, but getting the monkey off their back was a very important thing.
I think that good things can happen. They still have a Kansas City monkey that's pretty significant.
Yep.
Lamar Jackson still needs to prove that he can play against Pittsburgh. I mean, that's a reality that we're gonna have to deal with.
He won against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, in his worst game ever.
No, I said he won against Pittsburgh.
I know, and he was terrible. The one time he beat
his
Pittsburgh.
worst game ever was that loss against Pittsburgh.
Right, that might be fair. Well, that was the worst in terms of throwing the ball to the other team. He was the one time he's beaten Pittsburgh. Now, in fairness, it's only 2 games we have to work with. That's it. That's all we got. 2 games. One time he was terrible. They happened to win anyway because he got the benefit of playing against Mason Rudolph and Dexter Hamburgers, whatever the F that guy's name was. And then this year, they played poorly and they lost. Like he still has to prove that because Pittsburgh's going to be around. Like that still has to happen. They got one of the 3 big things is gone. They won a playoff game. There are 2 that still linger. Like we still haven't dealt with.
I don't count Pittsburgh because he's beaten Pittsburgh, so I don't count it. I'm sorry.
You got to play. You got to be able to.
I hear you, but I don't count it.
Like Marlon Humphrey beat Pittsburgh that day.
I hear
That's
you.
what happened. Marlon Humphrey won that game.
But in that second, if he plays in that second game, he beats their ass. Like let's be real.
Oh, last year.
Yeah.
Oh,
or this year for that matter.
Yeah, probably. I mean, again, I hear you, but he still has to do it. Would be my point. He still has to go do it. He still has to go do it.
The Kansas City thing to me is the biggest one. That's the biggest one because he's played in all of those games, and although the first game was not his fault, the other 2 he contributed to.
And that was the goal for this. If they beat Kansas City and lose to Buffalo in the AFC Championship game, it's way easier for me to sit here and do this show and sort of say, yeah, it was a successful season, though you got the Kansas City thing out of the way. It's over. It's over. You've proven you can do that. Right now, they didn't even get the chance. That's tough, right? Like that's a tough thing for me to say. This makes it successful. That's it. That's all I'm feeling.
I hear you.
Oh, that's fine.
We're done.
Me and Casey said it's successful. You wavered.
You wavered.
Man up.
You wavered.
And I understand the argument.
You wavered.
I do. I do get it, and I think it's fair. This was the playoff thing was such
it's a good one. It's a good one. I'm glad it's gone.
But everybody, Glenn. But everybody's bottom line is the Super Bowl. So nobody's team is a success.
It wasn't the Super Bowl alone to me. Again, if this
I
week,
hear you.
If Pittsburgh wins last week, and this week the Ravens play Kansas City tonight, and they beat Kansas City and turn around next week and lose to Buffalo, I'm capable of saying this was a successful season.
I hear you. I just think that the playoff thing was a big thing.
I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that happened in a season that came just short of being a successful season. That's the way I would label that. We'll talk plenty about it. We got a lot of hours to fill moving forward. That's the way it's going to go. KZ, you're going to be doing draft stuff, right?
Yeah, still a little bit DFS through the Super Bowl, but then Lots of draft stuff coming up.
Can you figure out a way to put Kyle Pitts or Jordan Brevin on this roster?
They can't get him this year.
It happened.
Or Jordan Brevin. I said or Brevin. Can you figure?
They can get even where they are, where they're going to be picking.
Thank you. I would please find a way to make that work. I'd appreciate you so much.
At Fans Fantasy is how you follow him. PressBoxOnline.com to see all of his stuff. Rita, of course, at the NFL Chick, and the Gridiron Girls podcast continues as well. And she's going to try to get out of it again, but she'll be back next season. You're both stuck. That's the way it's going to go.
I'll be trying to leave.
Ken doesn't try to quit. You always try to. You are always trying to get out of it. You are always trying to get out of it.
I just want to enjoy my fandom sometimes.
I feel you.
But you know what? I'm at peace with this. I was at peace. I was not anxious today like I have been. Like last week, I was like a nervous wreck. My stomach.
This season would have been a disaster.
My
if they had
stomach
lost
was in knots. This week,
Yeah.
I was just kind of like, if they lose, I'm not mad. Like it was just one of those things, right? And I was okay with that. And that's why I came in today. Because if it was like last week, I would have been like, I'm not coming in today. But it was not. I felt really good about how I was going to feel.
It would have been
had
me,
this game
Ken, and an
went
empty
either
chair.
I felt good about how this game was going to be, whether it was win or lose. I was like, I'm going to be fine, so I can do this post game.
I really enjoy doing this show. I love it. I love doing this show. I appreciate everybody hanging out. Our numbers have been consistently good. Thank you all for that. There are plenty of options, and appreciate you guys choosing us for post-game throughout the course of the season. I'll be back on Monday. We will start moving in a different direction. It ain't going to be fun. I don't know what to tell you. It's just we'll talk football for another couple weeks because there's games still being played.
Absolutely.
It's what it is. It's just what it is. Thank you to everybody at PressBox. Thanks to all of our great sponsors who made this possible throughout the course of the season, like Wise Markets, the U.S. Army, C3 American Exteriors, Window Nation, Glory Days Grill, CCBC, Toyota. Love all of them. Thank you so much for allowing us to be able to do this. At Glenn Clark Radio, glennclarkradio.com, Monday through Friday, 10 to noon. Ravens lose. This is it. End of the line. Follow me down to the end.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Don't quit your day job.
Oh, my God.
Love you guys. We'll see you.